This next session is for me, it's pretty exciting. It's kind of like the forbidden fruit. And I've got to put the big disclaimer out there. None of this is set in stone and it's changing every day. But with that, here is the latest that we know is going on. It's very exciting. There's a lot of change in the air, but the opportunity is great. And so, Troy, just a little fast facts, because now I know a little bit more about Cuba than most of the people, but that's only because I've been doing this for about 4 or 5 months. It's, I don't know, 110,000 kilometers, 2/3 the size of Florida. It's got about 11 million people into it. Havana is a very cosmopolitan city, by far the biggest in the Caribbean, 2 million people. Old Havana is very exciting, very forbidden, and it's 90 miles from the U.S. So Cuba is the big one out there. And Havana is the big engine out in the Caribbean. And it's been 40, 50 years since anybody has really done a lot down there. So if the embargo, when the embargo goes, there's, it's been referred to as a big sucking sound in the Caribbean as everybody flocks to Cuba, and you'll see why in just a minute. It's famous for nightlife, of course. It used to be called the Latin Las Vegas. During Prohibition, everybody used to go 90 miles south in the 20s and 30s, and it was the Latin Las Vegas before Las Vegas. And everybody used to be down there doing all of that. Classic cars, cigars, salsa, of course, beaches. It's renowned for all of those things, especially the cars, and exciting place. It's also famous for, it's got 300 beach areas, it's got miles and miles and miles of white sandy beaches. Christopher Columbus in 1492, when he landed on the shores, he said, "This is the most beautiful land I've ever seen in my life," and that was for Cuba. They're highly educated. The workforce in Cuba, the percent of doctors is number 2 in the world. They are famous for medical exports. They're famous for ecotourism. They're famous for their sugar. They're famous for a lot of things down in Cuba that we wouldn't think of. And they're very, very industrious people. They are at the top of the chart in terms of their productivity and what they do. Hemingway spent a lot of time down there, the casinos, Latin Las Vegas, and in 1962, because of the embargo and all of that, it became the forbidden fruit and to some degree frozen in time. Right now, Cuba is open for business. They've got 10 airports, 2 or 3 of them are very large internationals. The biggest players right there, and this is why we're affiliated a little bit, is Canadians have been flying over the U.S. for years. 1 million visitors a year go down there, live, work, and play, and buy real estate. Followed by UK, same trends in the U.S. They've got well-established banking. They've got finance. The exchange rates are great. They're doing business with everybody in the world except for the U.S. So, next slide. We see a softening relationship, and this is not written in stone, and this is where it's very fluid, but according to the New York Times and a lot of people, we are seeing some policy changes, especially with the Obama administration. Raul Castro was in there. They just freed 53 dissidents. Castro came back up in the last month. But there has been a really pro-American establishing relationships with our partners down there. There happened to be a wheat bill and tagged to it a trade bill. So we look as if pending legislation within the next year, maybe by the end of this year, there will be some softening in terms of the restrictions. And in fact, the UN vote was 187-2. US and Israel were the only 2 that voted against pulling the embargo. So it is, it's there, everybody wants it. We feel the time is right to catch the wave. We see the softenings of the relationships in the making, and quite honestly, people liken it to the Berlin Wall going down or the gold rush coming up. There's going to be lots of opportunities. What that means, if and when, or when the embargo goes, what that means in terms of housing and demand and how do we all make money at this, how do we catch the wave, how do we get down there first, the U.S. clearly will be number 1. There's, out of 1.5 million Cuban relatives, roughly 80% live in the Miami corridor, followed by Ybor City, and then Havana on the Hudson, up outside of New York City, up in Union City. So they're going to go down there and visit their relatives. The The trends by the resort, the travel industries, $1 million in the first year and $5 million by year 5. And so everybody else in the Caribbean is seeing this and saying, you know, I want to go to Cuba. I haven't seen it. It's been frozen in time. I've got relatives. They know the demand is going to be very, very great. So the business is open, and they think that when this goes, there'll be a gold rush or a Berlin Wall coming down type of, everybody's going to want to go down to Cuba. I know I'm going to want to go down to Cuba and see what's down there, and it's only 9 minutes away. So they think the demand is going to be great. A little bit about the U.S. impact. We're the big brother right up the street. In the 50s, 85% of all visitors to Cuba came from the U.S. Well, that went down to 0. Currently, today in the Caribbean, 55% of all visitors throughout the Caribbean are U.S. visitors, but only 3% go to Cuba. So when that goes, 85%, will probably, that number will go back up again. 80 to 90% of the people will be from the U.S., most of those will be out of the Miami corridor, followed by Tampa and New York and every place else. And it's a Canadian crowd right now, which is going down there. So the U.S. is going to be a big partner when the embargo goes. We see this as a very compelling opportunity, and I'll segue into how we got there. But you have to understand Cuba today. There is no ownership of real estate, so it is you can't buy right there. But the problem is when you go down there to visit, everybody is, it's like a 30-year-old days in. Nothing has been upgraded. There's no 3 stars. There's even no 4 or 5. There's no place to stay. So you don't have a place to stay, and if you go to your relative's house, you know, they probably don't live in great accommodations. And so the demand or the trend is to build the resorts with the cooperation of the government where they can come visit you and stay in your 4 or 5 and enjoy your sauna and all the things that you have. And so that generally the trend. You'll visit your relatives, but they'll actually come to your 4 to 5 star accommodations rather than you go to their 1 or 2 star lodging. So that in the housing will be the big trends. We are, and we'll segue with Mark a little bit on the Canadian partners, but essentially they're already down there doing business, and they know Raul. They've got the 3-year head start. They've got the blessing of the government. The development plans are in there. They have their beaches picked out. They have their hotels picked out. They have their databases going. They have the direct flights going. They're ready to sell now. And Mark, if you want to talk a little bit about your people and their databases and what they're doing.
Sure. Thanks, John. We're through a sister company of ours at Sotheby's called Blueprint Global Marketing, which is it's a sort of a strategic marketing and sales and highest and best use company that does work for developers around the world. We're working with a company, a Canadian company, as John alluded to, that has a partnership with the Cuban government. And they're just sort of finalizing the real estate law associated with these products because there's none in place right now. And they have 3 parcels of land, one in Havana, one that's an island, and one that's a beachfront property. And so they were hoping to get to market this year, but they're not going to make it. So probably next year they're going to release the first new real estate offering in Cuba since the 60s. And they are, it won't be a fee simple ownership, because as John alluded to, there's no such thing in Cuba rather. There will be financing available, and right now it can be purchased by people from, we think there's going to be a lot of interest from Canadians, because there are 900,000 Canadians that visit Cuba every year. 900,000. We think that there's going to be interest from abroad as well. And as relations are normalized, we anticipate, as John alluded to, a huge amount of interest from people in Florida to look at these resorts.
What's the name of the Canadian company?
Well,
No, that's the marketing. What's the name of the Canadian company?
MyCubaLiving.com.
MyCubaLiving.
The next one, Troy. And this is where it's in flux, and I want to make the disclaimer. A lot of things can change, and nothing's written in stone. Our Canadian relationships, and it's not just Sotheby's, it's all the realtors, and it's all the people up there, the big buying groups. They're all open for business. It'll be the Marriotts, and the Disneys, and the Interwest, and the Sotheby's. There'll be a bunch of people going down to Cuba, but these are the trends. So We think it'll probably be the vacation club type of concept, and everybody can get a payday out of this, but you may not buy the single-family residences. You'll be buying more of the vacation clubs or the shared type of thing that run on a 99-year lease. And you get the amenities, the ease of use, you'll put it into a rental or a flex program, and you'll exchange it. And that appears to be the trend rather than fee simple homes. And so that is what's going on right now. And we think it's pretty exciting because you can be on the beach, you can go snorkel, you can dive, you can go to the ecotourism. There'll be hotels in downtown Havana and Old Havana, which have very great nightlife. And so you can live, work, play, and enjoy in Cuba, which is a pretty exciting thing, and then put it into the rental programs. So then you can go to Vail or some of these other places on your off time. Then the last one, just to show you how, where we are in terms of our cycle. We just finished this is how new it is, mycubaliving.com. That'll be our gatekeeper of the site of what's going on in Cuba, because as we're plugged into the Canadian people and the US and all of the legal teams, what's going on, we're going to start updating people. So we just started today, but it's a priority preview, it's an interest list, but you can register all of your people on there. So that is the news breaks and you want to be on the first plane down to Cuba, it'll all be there, and here's the opportunity. So,
okay, what about the Cubans who left against their will, owned this property at one time? Are we going to have lawsuits and stuff in that again?
Different topic, different day, sidebar. Don't even want to go there. And all I know is that there's a lot of resistance, I have to put it out there, especially in the Miami corridor for what happened. But if the policy changes, and it looks like it's going to, there's going to be a real gold rush down there to bring your clients to Cuba and go down there and enjoy it. So we are creating an interest list, and we will tell you all the legislation. There'll be all the VIP packages that all the different vendors will be putting on. So it's an exciting time.